Okay, this is my rant video that I've decided to make, and once again it's regarding Shills, and obviously, and in particular one, because it's this comic book site, which they claim it is, comic book movie, and a particular journalist, or he calls himself that, Josh Wilden. And once again, he's back at his usual crap, as usual, where if it's anything DC Comics related or anything that's nothing to do with Marvel, he then obviously sits there and slags it off. Now, my whole take on this whole thing in terms of what he does is that I could almost understand it if once in a while, say a journalist makes an article about a particular thing and then says something bad about it because it's actually genuine and it's actually, justified in what the person is actually writing, right? And I could understand that if these things were in particular a kind of a one-off, right? But I've seen the evidence for me is very in black and white, where he only seems to do it with anything that is DC Comics related, or any other superhero thing that's not affiliated, that's nothing to do with Marvel. Alright, and again, as I think I've said in numerous amount of videos, I have no problem in somebody that is a fan of a particular thing. So let's say they're only a Marvel fan, or even in the video game industry, where you've got people who are just PlayStation. That's all they are, or they're just Xbox, and that's what they're like, or they're just Nintendo. And that's what the whole soul focus on, because maybe that's the particular platform that they like, and that's fine. But you at least have the balls to admit that that's what you solely like. So, for example, if you've got somebody that's solely PlayStation, it could be maybe just because they love the way the company operates, the actual software, the hardware, software, which would be the same thing in terms of the video games, where obviously you look at the franchises that are available on obviously on the PlayStation, where you've got Horizon Zero Dawn, you've got God of War, and other numerous amount of franchises. Or maybe it's just because the people just prefer the infrastructure of the way that PlayStation is set up. Similar thing could be argued with somebody that just solely likes Xbox, and that's the console that they grew up on. Like with me, for example, where there's various different types of phones available, but for me, I use Apple. And for me, the reason why I use Apple, for example, is because I just love the build quality, and I love the actual software interface, which for me, I prefer using over Android. Now, I have used Androids where family members or people I know I've got Android phones, and I've tried using it. For me, I can just about get by with using it. But for me, I find it much easier with the Apple OS, because that's what kind of suits me. And there's nothing wrong in that, because I can be honest and say, you know what, that's what I prefer. And there's nothing wrong with preferring something, because we all have different tastes and needs and stuff in what we like. So that to me is completely fair enough. If we all like the same thing, we will be mindless robots. But it's what pisses me off is when you've got people like Josh Wilden, who it's pretty evident that he doesn't like anything related with DC. I can't even think of one DC film that's been out of the couple of decades where he's even been positive about. Obviously, with the Dark Knight trilogy, I don't know that far back, because I don't even know if he was working that far back on comic book movie, so I haven't got a clue. Things like, I think, Man of Steel, he has slagged off. I think Wonder Woman, I definitely remember him doing that. Yeah, I know the sequel Wonder Woman didn't do very well, so that would have been easy food and drink to him. You think you've had like Aquaman, you've had Batman vs Superman, Justice League. Obviously, with Justice League, it's made it easier to sit there to tear into, simply because of the fact, obviously, that the problems that happened behind the scenes in making that movie. So DC put a rod in our own back there. So, and I'm trying to think, I mean, you had films like Birds of Prey, Shazam, which I remember when the first one came out, he did a similar thing. Again, he did a similar thing, with Black Adam. And it's probably other DC stuff that I have missed, movies that I have missed out. And again, some of these problems with some of the movies, for example, they've had their problems due to the way that Warner Bros. Have been structuring their kind of movies in terms of no plan and no production plans, right? And even when the Joker, which I remember, obviously, which people say was a bit of a controversial film, I do remember that when the Joker obviously was making its money, and obviously it made over $1 billion, he made an article basically basically slagging it off, simply not because of the fact that whether or not he may or may not like the actual movie, but it was simply because of the fact that it made $1 billion, which we know that prior to on the Marvel movies, from the phase 1 to about from phase 1 to the last I'm trying to think of the Marvel, you had like Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, where those are probably aside from the Spider-Man third movie, obviously with the 3 Spider-Mans in it, which is not a spoiler now, all those movies pretty much made over $1 billion. And what I've noticed is that when a DC movie has made over $1 billion, for example, as well as the Joker, Aquaman, again, he wasn't happy about it, because obviously it's only the Marvel movies that are allowed to be successful and make $1 billion. And then, of course, he sat there and then slagged off those 2 movies because they made $1 billion, and he was sitting there and trying to think of any other article that he could do to sit there to kind of to slag it off. Now, I've spoken to a journalist in regards of Josh Whedon, and they've even admitted that he does have a history of being anti-DC and being a Marvel show, and basically anything that isn't DC related, he'll sit there and come up with ways to slag it off, even when it has been genuinely been successful and been well received. So he does this intentionally. So again, as I said before, if Josh Whedon simply only likes Marvel movies, I've got no problem with her. Now, as I've said in many other videos, I consider myself a real comic book fan, in the sense that I love both DC and Marvel as a comic book fan, and I've explained why, which I'm not going to do it again because I want to bore people. But for me, I love both. But as I said, you get some people that maybe only like one or the other. I've seen YouTubers that their channel is solely focused just on DC. And again, that's fine. That's your choice. But at least they have the integrity and the honesty to admit that that's what they do, and that's what they whole soul focus on. So if you're somebody that is a hardcore Marvel fan, and then the YouTuber, for example, is only focusing on DC, you can't really complain, because you know the content and what you're getting from that particular YouTuber. So you can't really kind of get mad at it, because they put their cards on the table as to what it is that they actually like. And what I don't like about Josh Whedon, and why I keep making videos on people like him, is I can't stand people who, what they do is they go out of their way wanting things to fail and just solely being negative, and being negative, and then just showing the fact that they haven't got the decency to be honest and show some kind of integrity in what it is that they're doing. Now, on my YouTube channel may not be the most professionally slick looking YouTube channel, but when it comes to movie reviews, or if I'm reviewing a drink, or if I'm reviewing a TV series, or food, what you're going to get from me is 100% honesty in terms of what I feel about that particular product, movie, or food. Now, I just uploaded a video that you may have seen where I did an outside unboxing of a pair of headphones that I got from Mazda. Now, I bought those headphones cheap because I just needed something that could just do the job, right? So I was never expecting the headphones, for example, to be like to have state-of-the-art sound, like if you bought Dre Beats, or if you bought like Apple AirPods, and you spent £200 or £300 on either earbuds or big headphones, because obviously spending expensive money on headphones, you're gonna get the good quality headphones. Now, even with those headphones that I've used, they do the job in what I intended to do, because you get what you pay for. I only spent like £8 on them. So for me, they do the job. Yeah, the bass in it is average. The sound for me was tinny, but I didn't expect anything less, because I got what I paid for. I wasn't going to expect it to sit there and have all these to have good acoustic sounds or bass, all that stuff in it. So I kind of knew from the start that the headphones weren't gonna be great, because they're only £8, and also the actual headphones are a little bit tight when I put them on my ears, and so it is adjustable, but it's not 100% comfortable. But again, as I said, it does the job for what the quality and what you pay for. All right, I bought those headphones out of my own pocket, right? So it's my money. So I'm not gonna sit there and then go on YouTube and go, oh, these headphones, I paid £8 for these headphones. These headphones are absolutely fantastic, great sound, blah 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 blah. Because at the end of the day, right, you're gonna get my honesty and what I feel about the headphones, and that's what that I do on my YouTube channel. It's for me about integrity and about being honest about what I feel about a particular thing. Whether I sit there and think that a thing tastes good, whether I think it's good money for value, you're gonna sit there and get it. And again, at the end of the day, even if you don't disagree, even if you don't agree with me, it's my honest opinion. I'm not gonna sit there and kind of bully somebody. Again, as I said, I'm an Apple fan, but I'm not gonna bully and go, oh, Apple is the best thing since sliced bread. Now, Apple did their show on Monday, and they've shown their new virtual reality set, which I forgot what it's called. And the price of the thing, it's over $3,500. And obviously it's going to only be available in the US, whereas so in the UK, we're not probably going to get it, but it's going to be very expensive. Now, in terms of what the build quality of it, in terms of how much it costs, no, in terms of what it does and the material stuff, for argument's sake, in terms of what it can do from what I've seen, it looks absolutely fantastic. But for me, the big factor is the price of the actual product. I mean, it's very, very, very expensive. And in some ways, I can't sit there and say, oh, that I'm not shocked about it, because it's Apple. So you kind of tend to pay more. Same thing with their laptops, where they're very expensive. So just because I'm a fan of Apple, it doesn't mean I'm going to sit there and say, oh, you know what, yeah, that price is just right, even though I couldn't afford that myself anyway. But you've seen me be critical about Apple, where I've done a rant video about Apple, about their products, so, to me, have been too expensive, or things like the lightning cable. And for me, which I've never liked, is it's far too expensive, because over the years they've risen the price of it, and it pretty much falls apart way too kind of easily. And as I said, and then I've said that the price of the products, for me, I'm not saying they should be cheaper to PC, because I suppose they build it as the build quality of their products, which I've said earlier on is why I like Apple, because I like their build quality. But I do think there's some of their stuff is expensive. But I'm not gonna, just because I'm a fan of Apple, it doesn't mean I'm gonna sit there and go, oh, Apple can't do no wrong and their prices are right, their products and blah 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 blah. If I sit there and I feel that there are things that I'm unhappy about, I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna call it. You look at the Nintendo Online expansion things. You can play now Super Nintendo games, Game Boy Advance games, original Game Boy, NES, Super Nintendo, and it's great that pardon me, that you can subscribe to that service, get those games and play it. Now, the negative side of it is that it's a shame that you can't actually buy those games individually if you don't own the actual subscription service. And that's kind of a shame that you can't kind of do that. PlayStation, love PlayStation, but one of the things that I'm kind of disappointed with Sony is that they don't do enough demos, and they seem to be only doing the demos now where if you get their subscription services, then that's the way that you can play some of the games for like a couple of hours, and then after that you've got the choice to buy it. Now those different membership options that they've got are great, although I do think they're kind of expensive. I do think it could be a little bit cheaper. But I miss the days when the Uncharted games, the early Uncharted games had come out, or any games that they used to make, they used to give you the option of playing their games as demos. And what's it with the third party games? That's entirely down to the particular third party company with their games, in terms of whether or not they want to give you a demo to their game. Sony used to do this, and now they don't do it, anymore, which for me is kind of a real shame. They used to do trial and PlayStation Plus, although it's not called that anymore, where they used to give you a 14-day or 7-day trial with some of their games. They don't do that anymore. Xbox, again, as I said before, I've been late in the gaming, kind of getting into that, but now I am. I love Xbox, but the things that kind of disappoint me, and especially with Game Pass, where when I've had it, it's being able to play games where I normally wouldn't be able to pay for because I couldn't, afford them. And then you can play them on there, and then not take that risk in spending the 50 or 70 pounds it costs to buy a game now. And then even if you sit there and then you may do like it, what you can end up doing is buying it later on physically in the future, which is what I do with a lot of my games, where I've got Forza Motorsport 6, the physical disc, and when I had Game Pass over the months, I ended up playing Forza Motorsport 7. And at the time I wanted to sit there and buy that, but it was too expensive, even second hand. But I ended up playing the entire game and then completing pretty much most of it. And if it wasn't for Game Pass, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And with other games where, I probably wouldn't go out there and buy them, but I probably would sit there and play it on Game Pass because it's free, which for me is kind of fair enough. But the negative side of Game Pass for me has been the fact that what they do is that they remove the games off of it every a couple of months. So some of the games just totally just get taken off. So it's not like the game library is building up. They just remove them, which kind of for me is a shame. They're missing a trick there. The games would have been able to stay on there. Now with some of the FIFA games, say like, right, if you get Game Pass Ultimate, so you get EA Plays, they remove the older FIFA games, and that kind of makes sense. Because obviously if you've got the newer FIFA games, then it makes sense that you're going to play those rather than play the old ones. So that part I get, but that's the thing about Game Pass. And yeah, and I can criticise and say, you know what, I don't think, although I do really like it and it's benefited me over the years that I've used it, I don't like the way that they kind of remove it. So even though I'm a fan of something, I can still criticize something, even though I'm a fan of it. And the problem is that I have with Josh Wilden is that obviously with the up and coming Flash movie, I knew he was going to do that. And my prediction, because he did the first movie where he said, "Oh, the projected weekend of it has halved," and we kind of already know that he's basically going to make our articles slagging off the movie. He's going to he's going to sit there and pick the movie apart, not necessarily because of what Ezra Miller has done in his personal life, but we know he's going to do that. Now, when Marvel movies, for example, have underperformed in terms of money, or they've got average reviews, what I've noticed what Josh Wilden does is that he will make the first article on the first week of when the particular Marvel movie comes out, but when it starts to underperform, and then obviously the reviews start coming out where maybe the review journalists don't like it, within a week he doesn't even bother with it anymore. And then when a Marvel movie does extremely well, like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 does, and then the Spider-Verse sequel are doing real well, he sits there and he starts praising it. Which, by the way, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that he starts praising it when it's successful. And then he'll start making videos and going, "Oh yeah, how good it is. It's second week, it's done this. It's the best superhero film ever made." And that's another thing. What pisses me off is when people turn and say, "Oh, this is the best superhero film ever made," which I do find ridiculous, because it's only the best superhero film ever made until the next one comes out. That is actually good. So it is a bit stupid, but that's what he does. And my prediction, what he's gonna do with the Flash is, he's solely gonna focus on the negativity of the reviewers that don't like it. Then he's gonna pick apart on things like, "Oh, the movie is, it hasn't made enough money compared to what so and so said." Then he's gonna do a video saying six things that did work, 6 things that didn't work. And then what he's gonna do, and then he's gonna sit there and put the new DCU is in trouble. What's James Gunn gonna do now, because the DCU is doomed? And he's gonna sit there and say all this stuff. All right, and this is before obviously the movie comes out on June 16th. And you can tell by what I can tell what he's gonna say, because he's an open book. There are some people where you know what they're gonna do because they're so predictable. And because as I said before, I have never seen him have a DC film, for example, that you could, not to say it's gonna be the best film since sliced bread, where the film is fairly decent, a good enjoyable movie, where you can sit there and take your family out, or you can go on your own and simply enjoy it. And it's a decent movie. I've never seen him do that. Every DC movie that comes out, he slags it off. Every single one of them. And as I said before, he's only simply doing this because he just wants to get clicks, and he just wants to get views, or he just wants to sit there and be controversial, because that's what makes him famous or infamous, depending on how you kind of look at it. So he's got no interest in trying to be a proper journalist. And the thing that's really funny is that when I've looked at the other journalists that work on comic book movies, they don't seem to behave like that. I've seen somebody in there called Mark Cassidy, and I've seen his articles, and they seem to be decent. That's the only name that springs to mind at the moment. But he seems to be fairly decent. And then even some of the articles that I've seen him write about the Flash, one minute he'll write an article, he'll write several articles kind of slagging it off. Then I've seen him write articles where he's been fairly decent about it. Then he writes another article, sitting there and slagging it off again. And the thing is, what he's doing is that this was the same Josh Whedon that wanted Fast X to fail because he wanted Guardians of the Galaxy to sit there to make money. Because obviously, if you release new movies during when a current movie's out, obviously, whether or not the movie is good or not, it's going to eat away at the amount of money that movie's making. Because obviously, some people want to go and see the latest movie, and he basically wanted to. He was basically telling people, don't see Fast X or any other particular new movie that might be coming out, because I don't want Guardians of the Galaxy to slow down in the amount of the box office money. Right, because I wanted to sit there for it to sit there to make over $1 billion, and that's basically what he was telling people, inciting people to do. Now we've seen people who, which I'm not going to mention, who have incited people to do. We've seen people that who've incited people to do things without literally dirtying their own hands. And for me, it's kind of disgraceful. And as I said before, what kind of gets at my goal with people like Josh Whedon is that there are people out there who love movies and TV shows or any form of entertainment and just want to sit there and want to be entertained by watching whatever it is. Now, me, as I've said before, I love movies. I've explained the history as to what got me into movies and why it got to me movies and why I have when it comes to the physical collection of movies and TV shows, why I've got such a huge physical collection of movies and TV shows. I've said this in a video, so you can go back and look at the videos that I've made. And I've explained why, because for me, it's a passion. There's nothing better when you may be going through, like for me, like I've had of recent. I was going through a bad time when it came to my health, which I won't bore people to, and I was worried about it. And I've even had a friend of mine yesterday that was even worried about me, saying, "Look, you've got several health problems. You should be worried, but you have to sit there. Not say you have to worry, but you have to sit there, because these things can happen to you. You could die in the next. I could die in the next 5-10 years because my health problems. I've said this many times about my cousin that died over a year ago. All of a sudden, and she had no health issues, but all of a sudden just died. And obviously that's still. And then when she died and that happened, it was a shock to my family. It still is. And it was things like movies and TV shows and video games for me that helped me. That was a healing process of taking my mind off of a really dark time. Similar thing to what I'm kind of going through now with my health problems, where sometimes when I feel worried or I feel down, I put on a particular movie, depending on the genre. It doesn't matter what it could be, an action, thriller, comedy, depending on what my mood is. And then you sit down and then you just watch it and then you just enjoy yourself. Only just a couple of days ago, I was watching the Sandman series on Netflix, and and a few months ago I was about halfway through the season, and because of so many other shows I was watching, I didn't get time to watch the entire season. And it's only like a couple of days ago where I've gone back and then I've watched I finished watching it. I've got one more, the bonus episode, which is episode 11 of Sandman season 1, and that's been given to season 2. And I found myself watching 3 or 4 episodes in one go just to finish off the season, but mainly because I was actually enjoying it. Although it's a bit of a weird, dark series, but I enjoyed it. And also, and I know that Arnold Schwarzenegger's got a new series called Fuber, and I'm looking forward to kind of watching that as well. Even though I haven't watched the episodes yet. And it's sometimes it's like when, and obviously later on tonight, over in the UK, you got Superman and Lois season 3, and then you got Gotham Knights later on tonight. And so I've got that kind of to look forward to. And I know a lot of people don't like Gotham Knights. Now, I don't mind it so much, although I don't sit there and think it's the best thing since sliced bread. But what I do, what the thing that has got me intrigued about it, also I like Misha Collins' portrayal of as Harvey Dent and his split personality, and also a lot of the stuff that's going on with the Court of Owls. I found that that's the part of it that's kind of got me fascinated about the actual show. And I think if it kind of maybe wasn't for that, maybe I would have totally given it a complete miss. But it's all, but and then sometimes if I want to play it like, and then I've got the rare replay I've got the physical version, so it doesn't have GoldenEye in it, unless you buy the digital version of it or got Game Pass, which I don't have at the moment. I've been going through Perfect Dark. The last time I played it was on the N64, and then I played it with the expansion pack, and I've been enjoying playing that game, although I don't remember it being that hard and that long. And I'm about halfway through the game, and it's a game that I'm hoping to sit there and stream and do a playthrough of it, and I've been enjoying that. I've been going back and playing for Forza Motorsport 6, but playing it differently in the sense of I've been playing it from the dashboard view, which is kind of a very different experience. And then my brother's been playing Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Switch, and obviously you've got the new Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which we haven't got yet, but obviously I'm assuming that once he clocks Breath of the Wild, I'm assuming that he might get it. Breath of the Wild, by the way, I haven't played yet, which again is very naughty of me. But I do kind of want to play that. Mario Odyssey, get that Mario Odyssey. I haven't played yet. And then across the various different consoles, whether it's the Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch, there's been like some one or two. There's been quite a few video game bargains that I've bought on the sales, and they're mostly remasters or even classic games that I've played in the past. And as I said before, sometimes when I'm feeling down or I can't sleep or I'm worrying about the future, which I know you really shouldn't, because it isn't good for your mental health, these things, when it comes to watching movies or video games, these things can be a way of a coping mechanism in terms of taking your mind off things, and especially during the pandemic. when obviously we know that a lot of streaming services were doing forever because everybody had to stay home, and that was people's only way of entertaining themselves and through a difficult time. So when you've got people say like Josh Walding who do what they do, which he intentionally does, it's kind of really pathetic. And that's one of the things where even with social media, I've kind of got a bit fed up of it, because I'm aside from the fact when maybe I'm advertising a new video that I've uploaded to my YouTube channel, I'm tending to find, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, I'm not really bothering social media anymore, because you see so much negativity, you see so much hatred on it, and where people are just being hateful. And of course, if you sit there and you say these things like I'm saying, you'll get called woke and God knows what, which when it comes to the term woke, it's just a term that I've just invented recently, because people have always been that way from the beginning of time. It's just people love to put new labels on old things. But there's too many people out there in this world that want to spoil the enjoyment for other people in this world. And especially with mental health, we need that form of escapism, depending on what the stuff that we've got, that each individual on this planet is going through. And for me, it's been movies and video games. And as I said before, the reason why I'm so passionate in terms of not being too keen on Josh Walding, for example, right? It's really kind of annoying when you know that he's doing this on purpose. Then you get the comment section where it's all agreeing. You get the toxic people all agreeing with him, because obviously toxic people all tend to clumber together in one big group. And it's kind of really, for me, it's really pathetic where I see people that can't seem to be able to think for themselves, where I'm not sitting there and telling people what they should like or what they shouldn't like, but it's being able to sit down and to formulate your own opinion about something, rather than sitting there and listening to what somebody is telling you how to think. It's a similar problem that I have with newspapers and news organisations, where it's almost as if they're only posting what they want you to sit there and how they want you to think. And instead of you being able to, for example, sit there and think for yourself. So what people end up becoming is mindless automatons, rather than sit there and thinking for themselves. And as I said, Josh Wilder for me is not, is not a real fan. And even though you can clearly tell that he's a Marvel shill, he's not even a very good Marvel shill, because in a sense that when a Marvel film does not do very well in terms of reviews or underperforms, and it just disappears from the cinema, and it doesn't make the money that it should have done, he doesn't even bother with it. So not only is he a poor comic book fan, or a poor journalist and a poor movie reviewer, he's even a poor Marvel show, because he only focuses on a Marvel film when it's successful. A true fan, if he was a proper show, would be sitting there and saying, you know what, right, although it didn't do very well, for example, maybe I thought that maybe he could say, you know what, I thought that it actually was a good movie and it deserved to do better. But he takes the coward's way out in terms of what he does is, I'm not going to do. It's not doing very well now, so I'm not going to post about it. And it's very easy, and I've said this with certain things that I've been on or put hard work into things. It's very easy, for example, to jump on the bandwagon of something when something is successful. But when something isn't and it's not well known, nobody gives it the time of day. The amount of stuff that I've talked about on certain media, where I've talked about certain shows like Westworld, and even was it Sylvester Stallone's show that was on Paramount Plus, just finished the first season, and there's been a numerous amount of other shows that I've even talked about on social media, even Star Trek, right? New Star Trek shows. And when it comes to like Star Trek news, the particular movie news, but that particular TV show or series or movie, and especially if it's something completely fresh, and nobody's giving it the time of day in terms of the effort that you've put into posting about it, whether I've done it in the written form or a video form. And as soon as it becomes successful, where now everybody loves it, everybody jumps on the bandwagon now because it's successful. And it's very easy to jump onto the back of something that is successful. But when something kind of isn't, it's kind of not well known and nobody knows what it's about or where it's going, nobody wants to give it the time of day. But when it's successful, it's very easy to sit there to go, it's great. It's like, for example, you got Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Now, nobody knew how that was going to turn out. Although, generally speaking, when Nintendo make their games, they generally make masterpieces. But it very easily could have gone wrong. In the sense that people could have said, it's not as good as Breath of the Wild, or they find things to nitpick at it, to sit there to belittle the actual video game. But as soon as it comes out, it's like, all right, this is a masterpiece, 10 out of 10. Everybody comes out and goes, it's the best Zelda game ever made. Which, from what I'm hearing and from what I've seen, it looks like it is. It looks like it's a huge improvement over Breath of the Wild. I'm only judging by what people have said. I haven't played it myself, either game. But I'm only going by what the common consensus. But now, as soon as people sit and come out, masterpiece, game of the year. Now, everybody else comes and goes, yes, I agree with that. Great, game of the year, masterpiece, game of the year, game of the year, game of the year. Everyone's coming and saying that. But if the thing hadn't been, or nobody had said that, they would have sit there and tearing it apart, or not giving it the actual the attention that it deserves. But yeah, when a game, for example, is unsuccessful, nobody wants to know. It's very quickly forgotten. So you look at games like Forsaken or Redfall or numerous other games there's numerous other games at the tip of my tongue that have come out, and no one's even kind of bothered about now because everyone's forgotten about it. And that's what seems to happen when, again, when something isn't successful or isn't deemed as being successful anymore, or people just moved on. And as I said before, Josh Wilding isn't even a good to me, he's a poor journalist because his grammar's really poor. As I said before, when it comes to articulate myself, I've always said that I don't think I have the world's greatest voice.